All right. Hey everyone, my name is Katie Bradford Osborne. I'm the founder and curator of Roaring Artist Gallery. We are a fully virtual art gallery that exhibits and supports exclusively the work of women identifying and non-binary artists. And we are here today for an artist talk for our current exhibition, Connect the Dots. And I am so excited for this. This exhibition is so beautiful and the premise behind it is so beautiful. And I am so excited for you to hear from these two artists. We have Sophia Muller and Christine DeLay with us. And yeah, I'm excited to hand it over to you. First, I'll read the show statement and then I'll do that. All right. The core theme of the show is an exploration of deep, messy, and intimate connection between individuals and its critical role in mental health. The title of the show, Connect the Dots, speaks to the idea of partnership, and the work explores how community can empower the individuals involved to see themselves in a positive light. By talking virtually every day, artists Sophia Muller and Christine DeLay have developed a deeper level of compassion for each other as artists and friends, which is of particular importance for two female artists who are striving to take up space in the male-dominant art world. Christine and Sophia first met 24 years ago in art school. After graduation, they went their separate ways, but stayed in touch, and over the years, their friendship grew. They even worked together in menial jobs, but they found they were getting caught up in the whirlwind of parenting, which left no time for art. By sheer luck or serendipity, Sophia sent Christine a text one day lamenting the fact that she felt her art career was over. So Christine, who was also longing for an art career, came up with the idea of being accountability partners in art. Christine and Sophia were clearly meant to collaborate, so Connect the Dots is a direct result of the devotion, support, and love that these artists have for each other. Christine is a mixed media artist using found images from magazines and books and works over these with paint, pens, spray paint, charcoal, and vinyl gouache. She starts each piece with new images that conjure feelings of nostalgia or are personally meaningful. Sophia has a similar process, but also uses pouring medium over round panels, starting with a found video still, often from vintage home movies, as a way to represent a glimpse of an important moment in time. Connect the Dots explores ideas of nostalgia and the unseen quiet spaces that live within connection. Though these themes can be observed in the individual pieces, the show itself cannot be separated from the deep connection that has been forged by these two female artists who are determined to support each other as they grow into their full potential. I think that is a beautiful statement, and I'm excited to hand it over to you. All right.
Thank you so much, Katie. We're so excited to be here, and it's such an honor to be showing at Roaring Artist. And my name's Sophia Muller, and that's Christine.
Hello.
And yeah, we're going to just start the talk by kind of talking about where we came from, what we worked on kind of, early in the early days, and how we got here.
So I'll just take a moment here to share my screen. We have a presentation to share. All right. Beautiful poster for the show as well. And I just want to take a moment to also thank Katie, especially as emerging artists who are trying to figure things out. It's really great to have someone like Katie being part of a wonderful gallery like Roaring Artist Gallery, supporting women, but also she's so approachable and helpful. You supported us so much through this process, Katie, and I just want to say thank you straight off the bat. Like for instance, this is our first talk together, so it's really amazing what you've kind of supported us to do. So anyways, thank you.
It has been my pleasure. It really has.
Oh, cool. Okay, so you guys can see my screen here?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So we'll start off with the most embarrassing stuff right off the bat. This is me as a child right here. The one on the left is me and my sister. I'm the wily one with the chocolate all over her face and the messy hair. I've always been kind of a free spirit. And on the right is me on the motorbike with my dad. I loved hanging out with my dad and doing I guess I was more of a little tomboy, and I loved doing whatever he was doing. So yeah, we grew up, or I grew up, in a small northern Ontario, we're in Canada, by the way, a small northern Ontario town. So we grew up in a mining town, and it was very blue collar, and it was very isolated. So there wasn't a lot to do there. There wasn't a lot of culture, I guess you could say. So there was no getting on the bus to go to a city 20 minutes away to a gallery or something like that, or to an event. So a lot of what influenced me back then, and you can still kind of see it in my work, is stuff that came through Rolling Stone magazine or through TV. A lot of like punk posters, that kind of thing. That was the stuff that drew me in and that influenced me early on. And yeah, and then I guess I'll throw it over to Sophie.
Yeah, so I didn't grow up in so much a blue collar family, but I lived in a really isolated area of north of Toronto. So we were on a farm, and so I spent a lot of my childhood just running around, free spirits like Christine, free range kid.
Mhm.
I grew up in a very feminist household, which is maybe rare. I'm not sure, but my mom worked for the Canadian Abortion Rights Action League. So that was kind of, in the 80s, that was actually something, people didn't really talk about, just because people were so divided and it was such a political thing. So, but it was great having a feminist mom. And I didn't realize how much it influenced me, but I'm aware now as a woman and as a woman artist that the world is very patriarchal. So we're chipping away, and yeah, it's a journey. Yeah, and another influence that was amazing for me was my uncle's. He's an artist as well, and this is some of his work. He was an illustrator and an artist, and so the one on the left there is a book called Little K, and he actually based that image of the little girl there, Little K, on me, and it's a very feminist book as well. Um, and then the right image is just more of his current painting and illustration. So but yeah, next I kind of had trouble in school. It was very up and down, but I did make it into art school eventually after having a very turbulent high school experience. I went to the Ontario College of Art and Design, and that's what this building is. But actually, the top cool part there with all the cool design there, that wasn't there when, when I went. It was just the brick building underneath. But it was very intimidating. I have always had performance anxiety and social anxiety in general. So it was hard. Like, they made you really stand up and present in front of, all your classmates, and it was just intense. And I found it so overwhelming that I couldn't deal with it. So I talked to the dean, and her name was Catherine Knight, and she was amazing. She suggested that I try this new school that I had never heard of, and really no one had ever heard of. That was in northern Ontario, Elliott Lake, and I had never been north of, maybe 2 hours north of Toronto. So it was about 7 hours, right, Christine? 7 hours north Toronto,
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
Yeah, and so I thought, okay, I'll just do it. And it took so much courage, but I decided to go, and they gave me a scholarship. And when I got there, I realized, wow, this is incredible. It was like 9 students, but we had all these professors who were these young art teachers, and they were so cool and so amazing. You can see, I don't know if you can see, but some of the professors are there, like Paul Wald, Vandera. They were great influences on us, and we went on amazing trips to New York City and Montreal, and we got to, we had these amazing studios and all this, all these art supplies, and we just didn't even realize what we had, I think. Would you agree, Christine?
Oh, totally, totally. Yeah, we were too young to really kind of take on the gravity of what we'd been given, but um, it was, and just to be clear, this was an art school that opened up in my hometown. The one that I was saying was so isolated and northern and stuff. So for me, it was a no-brainer. It dropped in my lap when I was ready to kind of choose what I was going to do. And so yeah, that's where me and Sophie met, and that's where we kind of started our friendship. But
Yeah, and another amazing thing about it is that it was a First Nations art school. So they were focusing on Indigenous culture. So we also got exposed to things like how to build a birch bark canoe, or, we got to learn about, First Nations culture and art. And that's something that was so unique at the time. And it's something that in Canada and in Toronto, we're focusing on a lot more now. And it's really great. But at the time, it was kind of rare. So I feel very lucky to have experienced that.
and unfortunately, it doesn't exist anymore. It had to close down. It just, I guess, the isolation of the town or something, it just didn't gain enough traction. It was only open for like 9 or 10 years. So yeah, after art school.
Yeah, so we graduated and it was amazing. And this is the first kind of work that I was producing at the time after graduating from White Mountain Academy. And so it's polycarbonate. I was using these big sheets of polycarbonate, which is a type of plastic, and pouring paint on and cutting into it. And there's a piece behind me too from that era. And I worked on that for a while. I showed in galleries. I had a career going and I was making some money and I was doing okay. And it was really exciting that it was all working out. And then the BPA craze happened with, where people were like, baby baubles have BPA in it and it's going to hurt our health and it's terrible for us. And I was like, oh my goodness, because I was cutting into BPA plastic. So even though I was wearing a mask and the whole thing and I was trying to be safe, I mean, there's only so much you could do. And I was really concerned about my health. So I stopped doing that work. And around the same time, I got together with my partner, Adam, and we started having a family. And so that whole body of work ended. And then the whole child raising years happened. And it was just like a whirlwind. Would you agree, Christine?
Yeah, it was definitely a whirlwind. Having kids, obviously an amazing journey, but also, takes everything from you, especially in the early years. So yeah, the family chaos started, and creativity took even more of a back, what would you say, a back, it was back on the shelf. So and then
Yeah. And so years later, about a decade passed, basically. This is a funny picture that we just found the other day, but it's when, like, basically it was a decade for both of us, right, Christine, or maybe even longer for me. And I was feeling so down about not doing art, and I didn't have a studio space, and I was just feeling quite overwhelmed with all the work that seemed to never end. But I was never finding time to put into creative things or to art. And this is when the pandemic hit, with this picture of the mask, like right at the beginning when nobody even had masks. So I just cut up like one of Quinn's t-shirts, my daughter Quinn, and I made this this mask. Like, it was such a crazy time when I think about it. It's so weird. It seems like a million years ago. And anyway, Christine and I think you mentioned it in the statement, but basically I texted her one day and I was like, I'm so down about this. And she said, well, let's do a portrait a day. Let's just do a portrait a day. Even if we don't have studio spaces, even if we don't have any way of doing art full time, and it's going to be in little choppy increments, and just do it. Just let's do a portrait a day. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So we did it. We did portraits, every day, and we would text them to each other, and we developed this kind of rhythm, right, Christine?
yeah, it started to get things flowing again. And for me, it felt very, especially looking back, it was very like a serendipitous moment. It was, we were both ripe for, this happening. I had already started to do like my own portrait a day thing. I just, I was so tired of not having creativity in my life, and I missed it so much. So, and the pandemic, like, we had time on our hands, I wasn't working. So I just thought, you know what, it seems like such a hard thing to try and paint again, but I'm just going to do like a portrait a night while my son's in bed. I don't care what it looks like. It's just going to be a small portrait on paper with gouache, and whatever, do it, put it aside. And that's in the middle of that, that's when Sophie texted me, and we were off to the races. And that's the thing, you just never know what's going to be the seed for this wonderful thing that I feel like we've managed to grow. um
Yeah,
this
for sure. Yeah,
Sophie's.
and I feel like there's so much pressure, or at least I grew up with all this pressure. I realized in my 20s after graduating, I thought I saw my career in a certain way, and I didn't realize that, I forgot almost what it was all about. Like, it's a vocation, it's something you love to do. And, it doesn't have to have that pressure attached necessarily. I mean, sometimes it does if you really are paying the bills with it. But for us, I was like, let's just get back into it no matter what that looks like and not put pressure on ourselves. So this is some of the work, the other portrait that was in the other slide before as well. It's some of the work that we were doing at the beginning. Actually, this is all my work, Christine, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, this is some collage work in the corner here up at the top with, I was just playing, honestly, and it's so nice to think of that time. We switched around, we did a whole bunch of different things. I started painting on wallpaper because that's all I had. Like, I didn't have any panels. I didn't have anything to paint on. So I just had these rolls of wallpaper and I was painting on the backs of them. And we started to apply to things, which was really funny. Like, that sort of made the game more fun, right, Christine? We found this gallery in the States, who said everything's accepted. Everything's accepted. It doesn't matter. We're like, this is our kind of gallery. So we showed there, and that just broke the ice, and we felt like, okay, we're doing this, we can do this. And then this other one here, the landscape, it looks like kind of abstract, but it's supposed to be a landscape. And it was during the pandemic, it's kind of dark and sad, but a lot of people got displaced. There were, in Toronto where I run in the Don Valley, there were all these tents that popped up. And so I was running past that every day, and I started to take photos and paint those landscapes. So yeah, it was like a dark time, but it also a real kind of transitional rebirth thing kind of time for us, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And then we got studios. That was, I mean, when we first started, we didn't have studios. We had the idea of someday having a studio, but I was doing all my work at the kitchen table, and Sophie, I guess you were too. I'm not sure where you were making your work.
Yeah, kitchen table.
Yeah. I guess that's a mom thing. Kitchen table when the kids are gone to bed kind of thing. But yeah, I lucked out because I moved with my family to BC where I am now mid-pandemic. And my partner's his family has a huge garage. Huge. It's like you could make a tiny house out of it for sure. um, and I just, as you can see here, this is a very recent picture, which I'm actually proud of the chaos in it. It's like, it's productive, I'm in there a lot making work, but I just kind of took a small little corner of the garage and claimed it for myself and started going in there every day for at least 4 or 5 hours making stuff and not having even a goal, or not always having a goal, or just let's work, let's make it so that it's almost like a job, right? Every
Totally.
day you're in there whether you like it or not, which I usually did. But I don't know about you, Sophie. What was the birth of your studio like?
Totally. I was so lucky. I mean, that we had bought a house with a shed in the back. So we renovated it. It's really I think it was the beginning of the pandemic, I guess. That must be the timeline. And so it didn't take that much work, but it was so nice to have this amazing space where I didn't have to pay rent. It's like, it was life changing. And to get away, like to sort of separate yourself from your family. I mean, we love them, but and to have your own quiet space to focus is so incredible. And so yeah, just getting into that habit, and just getting out there no matter what. And referring to the messiness that we talked about in the statement as well, it's that ability to see it where the messiness is part of it. It's good. It's like some days are great, some days aren't. You know, sometimes your art it's terrible and you're just laughing about it. And, you know, laughter is another amazing thing that you get with an accountability partner and a best friend who does art with you, is that you can just bounce things back and forth honestly. And it's just so refreshing and so wonderful to have that. So.
And then we found Thrive, where actually that's where we found out about Katie. Katie, you did a talk there. And I got to say, you were so welcoming. And so you just came off so open and kind. And you said a few things in that talk that was like something about, you know, like if you're interested in like showing with me or you just have questions, I'm very nice. Just approach me. I don't know if you said I'm very nice, but like I'm approachable, you know, just contact me. And it planted the seed. It planted the seed of me going, okay, maybe not right now, but eventually I will contact Katie and see if we can get a show together with her. So, but I found Thrive through we were looking for podcasts about art, which is the good ones are far and few between, we find. So I found their podcast and I sent it over to Sophie, and she just like zipped through them. She listened to them all, and she, I guess, looked into, you know, what this Thrive thing was, and she found this community. And she suggested that we join, and we did. And yeah, it was a really great step in the right direction.
Yeah, and I love their idea of community over competition, because I think that's the thing about women supporting each other and female artists, is like this idea that, you know, you're there to raise each other up. You're not there to try and be better than anyone. It's about helping each other be stronger. And so that really appealed to me. And it's not something you know, the art world can feel really cold and really competitive. And so I was really excited to find both, you know, Thrive and Roaring Artist, and feel that warmth that was so, you know, felt so rare. So.
Something you said too, Katie, during that talk that I was saying to Sophie earlier that really stuck in my mind, and maybe it's one of those small simple things, but just the way you put it, something about like galleries need artists too. You know, it's like the whole idea that we also have some power as artists, like galleries wouldn't exist without us. So very empowering. So yeah, your talk was great.
Yeah. And so Christine and I, this is funny, like I was the most low tech person on the planet. Like I hadn't looked at screens for years having kids, and I was just never a techie person. So I literally didn't have, like, I wasn't on Facebook. I didn't have an Instagram account. I didn't know how to deal with any of that stuff. It was a miracle if I could send an email. It was like that. So Christine was like, well, why don't we do like why don't we do like an Instagram thing, but we'll just do it as a collective, and we'll start, and that way it doesn't feel like as much pressure, and we can put our stuff up, we can collaborate, maybe we can invite other women to join us and do, you know, art together, and we'll start our own thing. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And of course I couldn't do the techie part. So she started this whole thing. And so it was called Dotted Line Collective. And you want to say anything about that, Christine? Or
Oh, just that it you know, it just took a lot of the pressure off. Our names weren't really like involved. Nobody knew who Dotted Line Collective was. And it just helped to get the ball rolling in trying to post and figuring out what worked on Instagram and that kind of thing. And also, like, part of it was that Sophie didn't have the tech ability. So I started the Instagram so we could both kind of get up there, and I could, you know, teach her some of the Instagram stuff. But she's much better at the tech stuff now.
yeah, totally.
But also this work is early collaboration stuff we did. We don't collaborate anymore. Maybe we should. Maybe we should
Oh, I'm
collaborate.
sure we will again,
Yeah.
Christine. Sure we will.
These are like portraits that Sophie painted of mugshots, right? Mostly mugshots, early mugshots. And
Mugshots of women criminals, which to me, when you read about why they were criminals, a lot of them, it just seems ridiculous because they were from like the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. But yeah, like stuff like one, some were women who had been arrested because they had an STD, or, women who like just, it's just such an interesting thing to look back and see how oppressed women were, and just how fragile this period we're in could, you could think of it as fragile and a blink of an eye kind of thing. So we have to protect it. Freedom we have already, we have to protect. Do you want to say anything else about it, Christine?
oh, just yeah, Sophie was doing these beautiful paintings, and we came up with the idea of a collaboration. So she got them printed on canvas and sent them directly to me, and I did a bunch of line work on top of it. And through that, we got into a couple more shows, and yeah, I guess it's just it's always nice to look back and remember the little incremental steps we took, and to see like where it has gotten us. Like, can you believe that we just started off with like, let's do a portrait a day so that maybe we can be creative again, So
exactly. And I feel like it's so much easier to find courage when you feel you're doing it for someone else too, so it's easier for me to promote you, and it's easier for you to promote me sometimes than it is to do it individually. So.
And also, like, to that point, like, you weren't good at the tech stuff, so I did it,
Exactly.
And I was not brave enough to apply to shows. So you started that ball rolling, and
Right.
you helped me with that. So two heads are better than one.
Yeah.
Here's some more of Sophie's work, mugshot stuff.
Yeah, this is sort of where the mugshots ended up when I was working on Tyvek, which is this kind of house wrap material, because again, free material.
Yeah.
But it's this got plasticky quality that's so beautiful, like the way the ink pools and stuff on it. So I really enjoyed the way that was working, technically. So yeah.
Here's some of my earlier work. This is when I got the idea of following more of a snow globe theme. So just to kind of lay out how that happened, I was exploring a lot of different things, trying to find a focus, I guess. And I was buying these thrift store canvases, old thrift store canvases, and I had one that had like a cityscape. So I was, painting on it, spray painting, and I spray painted, I put down a plate and spray painted around it. And when I brought it up, it was like, oh, this looks like a snow globe. The city's shining through. That's kind of cool. And for some reason, that stuck in my mind. And a few days I kept thinking about it. And I thought, snow globe, that's a really kind of cool premise. Let's try it in 2D form and see what I can come up with. So I started in this little sketchbook at my table again. I still didn't have a studio. And I was playing around with collage and stuff, and I really, really got into it. And I'll show you later. It's still what I do today, but it has morphed into something different. So
yeah, and the circles Christine was doing at the time, we just kept realizing how much we were influencing each other kind of through the whole, because we were sending each other like day-to-day imagery of what we were working on. And so the circles really appealed to me, and I started playing with circles as well. And this is a show I did a year ago at the Riverdale Art Walk. It's an outdoor show. I just applied. It's like one of those things where you're like, okay, I'm doing it. And so this is, the first kind of work I was doing with video stills. And I kind of thought of the circle as a lens into this other world. So similar to the idea of a snow globe, like a lens, a sort of a otherworldly, you're entering into this space of something else. And to me, it felt like memory. So there's that nostalgia element as well. And I would just type in, things that were personal to me. So like places I'd visited as a child. So a lot of it is 70s, like sort of 1970s era kind of thing. Because I was born in 78. So yeah, I just started it just kind of almost became like an obsession. I just kept doing it. And the algorithm, this is the thing about tech. I'm so, in a way, it's so exciting to me because I'm so unaware of how it all works. But, the algorithm keeps feeding you the same kind of similar stuff. So I would look up some place I visited and there'd be these home videos posted from that place in a certain era. And you just keep getting more and more. And I find more and more amazing stills that I would paint over and work over. Yeah.
So we did a show recently. These are images from that show. And it really was our first kind of solo show. This was in January at a place called the Beaumont Studios here in Vancouver. And basically I had applied for this award that they had going. There were going to be 5 winners, and I was one of the 5. And it's called the Artist to Watch Award for emerging artists. And what you got was a little chunk of money and also a solo show. So when I met with the director to talk about, what my show was going to be like, I talked a little bit about Sophie at some point, and she said, "Do you want your best friend to be part of the show?" And I was like, yeah. So funny enough, again, serendipity. I left that meeting and Sophie called right away. She didn't know where I was or what was going on, but it was just, it's funny how, her little spidey tingly sense was going off. There's a show on the horizon. So yeah, you flew out and we did this show and it was amazing.
Yeah, it was super exciting. Thanks so much for including me in that. And it was your show. It was a solo show of yours, but they gave me this wall. And I was like, yes, this is awesome. We got to go to the opening and, meet all the people. And it's so nice to have people who have never seen your work, ask you questions about it. And it was just a really fun night. And I'm really glad we did it. And that was in January. So that was just really recently.
The thing is too, and to stick on this theme of supporting each other, that night was so much better because you were there, and all, the installation was a lot of fun, whereas it wasn't just me in my little bubble going like, what do I do next? Like, it's just always better when you have a partner to do stuff with. So
for sure. And even just the laughing at ourselves thing, like I feel like laughter is so much a part of it. And, we had to do math for the first time in years and measure and figure out like how to place the work and do all this stuff. But it was just so much fun with you too, Christine. It's great.
And there we are on the opening.
Yeah.
And here we are with Connect the Dots as well. This is like such a wonderful transition into what, I feel like everything that's happening for us is just really great right now. So milestones are happening, and this is one of them for sure.
Yeah. And going back to what you said before, it doesn't like these things happen when you try. Like you have to try and you have to be okay with failure. Like we started to be okay when we would apply to things and just not get accepted. That's okay. Like it's like check the box, So there's that sense of like, yeah, it's fun when you can laugh at yourself and be okay with it and just not have any kind of huge expectation attached.
Yeah. And again, collaborating with Katie, like you made the show look amazing. So that's another collaboration that really worked out really nicely. So, but we could talk a little bit about as well a few of the pieces, not all of them, but Sophie, do you want to start?
Sure. This one's called Poolside, and I'm starting to work bigger. It's kind of new to me to work big like this with these video stills because I have to print stuff bigger and it's some tech difficulty and stuff. But yeah, it's been really fun, and I really enjoy like you get a lot of interesting patterns and things when you're taking screenshots with like sometimes I'll use my phone or I'll do a screenshot on the computer, but you often get like interesting patterns and texture with that, and it's always blurry because they're video stills and they're old video. Like this one's from I think it's like late 60s, early 70s in the Isle of Man. And that's where my dad spent some of his childhood. So I was interested in seeing imagery of that space at the time when he would have been a child. But yeah, it's so cool. I really love. I have like sort of an ongoing theme. So one of them is water. I do a lot of work with water or pools or ocean scenes, and also there's a lot of home videos posted that have vacation shots. So you see all these different families taking vacations. So it's interesting. It's weird because it feels like memory to me, but of course it's not my memory. But I can imagine, that like that could have been somewhere where my dad visited as a child or whatever. So it feels personal. And there's a lot of, you can see like I've sanded it. There's like, I've added paint in and painted out certain areas, added other things in. And this is called Bump 2. The thing about video stills that's so great too is it's like printmaking where you can do series work. So you could print the same thing, but alter it on your computer and then alter it with paint differently, so you could have 5 different images that are based on the same video still. So this is the second one. I did another smaller one that was more like a sketch, but this one's bigger, 36 by 36. And it's bumper cars. So I don't know if you can tell because it's quite blurry, but it's like a girl in some park area or at some event where they're all bumping around. And I just have memories of that as a child going to, Center Island or Exhibition Place or Ontario Place and going on. I just loved the thrill of the bumping. That's the reason why I did. Yeah. Next slide. This is called Gather. So this is again, another theme is groups of women. So women doing things together in groups. And this is in Japan in the 1970s. And I just think some of these video stills are so beautiful to me. And so it feels, yeah, just like you get some of the colors that happen just naturally with video. It's so beautiful. And so I've obviously added paint in here and stuff, but yeah, so it's just a bunch of women walking together. And I feel like women, when the pandemic hit, I was quite aware that I missed those moments with women who I knew, even if they weren't necessarily close relationships, but I missed all those moments where I was able to, chat with some parents at drop off or pickup, or, walking with people to go do something. But here in Ontario or in Toronto, it was locked down like full on for a while and nobody was spending any time together. So yeah, that's one of those. And this is another one, similar idea, women walking and shopping. It's called Particular Things. And again, like women, I mean, historically, we've spent so much time all over the world really doing domestic tasks and just the conversations that, maybe washing laundry together or, depending on where you are in the world or at what time. But yeah, so this is sort of the same thing. They're shopping. And this is a group of girls at a high school in the States in the 1970s, and it's called The Crew 2. And yeah, there's a lot of school themes in my work as well, school and play. But school was hard for me. So I'm kind of obsessed with images of school scenes. And this is called Play by the Rules, another school shot. This is in the UK in the 70s. And this girl is drawing like some kind of, I think it's like hopscotch or something with chalk on the ground. Yeah, that's another one about play and school. And these ones are newer ones. They're Clown Girls 1 and 2. And I've kind of been, when I was little, I don't know if there was a clown picture in the bunch of pictures that were up of my childhood, but clowns have always been so interesting to me because it's like there are all these, I listened to a podcast with Bjork talking about clowns and how, women, like at least, in the 80s when she was talking about her childhood, but that there were like these roles women could play, but clowns weren't one of them, like silly, messy, klutzy, like that wasn't something women could be, So I love that idea because I feel like I've always felt that way. And so clowns are quite a positive image for me. My husband is scared of them. So it's kind of funny, but I think a lot of people are just because of horror movies and all that stuff, but I love them. They're like they're very happy for me.
Sophie, weren't you like seriously thinking of becoming a clown when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, that was my first like career choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
The performance
Love it.
I tried, he didn't fit well with.
Yeah.
But-
Funny that you married a man that's like scared of them.
And this is called Three-Legged Race. And this makes me laugh because this image, when I found it, I thought, oh my gosh, that's Christine and me together. And we're just like doing art together, tied at the leg together, and running together. It feels like that, like the support and the play and the laughter and the fun. Like that's what it feels like with you, Christine.
Oh.
So that's what that's about.
Oh, so this is my work. So basically this is my first delve into like larger size. Up until this point, I was making smaller pieces. And I think it mostly is because, well, first of all, I was still figuring out my process, but especially when you're doing collage, the images that you find in books are not that huge, not that big. So I had to kind of figure out a way how it's going to go larger. So this is Whispers and it's 24 by 36, so quite large. And the thing about going larger was that I really had to commit to the images. I had to get them printed larger in a very professional kind of way. And so it was a commitment for sure. And this one is clearly about connection. Like these women are, you can tell they're very close, and hidden down at the bottom there is a girl who's looking up. So I feel like there's a connection between these older women and this younger one, whether it be ancestry or, some older people that she looks up to. But there's definitely a connection there too. And you can still see there's like the snow globe thing is still happening. There's the circle and excuse me, the bottom image, I always kind of think of it as the base of the snow globe, but it never makes sense as a base. It's really just an additional image that I use to, hold up the other one. And also there's always a juxtaposition that happens with the couple of images that I choose. So, and this one is called Clowns. All of these pieces are the same size. And I kind of delved into that larger world. It feels oftentimes like if you want to get into a gallery, you kind of have to go bigger. You kind of have to have that impact, as people come in the door kind of thing. So you can still see there's a snow globe thing happening, but it's not so clear anymore. This one I started to play with kind of drowning out that snow globe feel and like almost taking the image onto the panel a little bit more. You can see, especially the clown with the white and red stripes. That's kind of where that idea started to develop for me, where, I'm using my mark making to kind of take that reality into my own world onto the panel. And of course, clowns, I love clowns as well. It was an accident. Me and Sophie didn't do clowns. We didn't talk about doing clowns. We just both love clowns. And, to me, clowns represent that whole like outcast weirdo side of things, but they're connected because of that, and I love that kind of thing. So this one I think is my favorite in the series that is up on Connect the Dots. I'm not sure why, except for I think I really like the composition that I created, and there's like a couple of hidden little moments which you have to look a little closer to find, and I like that aspect of it. But yeah, this is really, again, phones come up in my work and Sophie's work a lot as well. Um, and that's connection as well. That's a way for people to connect. But I don't know, there's something about the nun as well and the religion, and I won't go to that heavy time. I'll leave that one there. So this is a piece that I thought at one point I might ditch because it was just not really working for me. It wasn't developing in the way that I wanted. So there's always that moment I find with artists that not always, but with some pieces, you reach a point where you're like, okay, am I going to forge ahead with this and try to make it into something that I love? Or am I just going to start over because it's not working, right? But with this one, I decided, okay, I'm going to forge ahead. I like enough aspects of it that, I'm going to keep trying. So, and it turned into this, which I feel is one of my pieces that has the most depth of color and, layering, because I kept layering and layering. And it is, if you notice the kind of detail at the bottom, that is the image that I'm using for promotional stuff for this series. So never give up. That's my motto for that piece. Excuse me. And this one, I put it last because it was the last larger one that I did. And you can see a noticeable difference. It's not as busy. And I was playing with that idea of like holding back and not filling every little space, which, the busyness in my work, I really love in some ways, but I felt like it was really a challenge for me to hold back and not fill every space. It was almost, it has more of a vulnerable feel for me. And I really love like the large areas of pink and blue. And I feel like this might be a direction that I explore a little bit more in my next series. I'll always keep the busyness though in some areas, and not completely ditch it. I feel like there's like room for both of those, right? So yeah, I think that's all we kind of plan to talk about piece wise. And then we just, staying on theme for the show of like supporting women and warring artists supporting women, we thought we'd kind of share each one woman artist that we really love and admire. So this was my choice. This lady, her name is Jean Smith. She lives in Vancouver, Canada, where I am. And she does portraits of women. That's solely what she does. And she's pretty amazing. She used to be in a punk band. I forget the name now. Back in the 80s that gained some notoriety. But she doesn't do that full time anymore. She's an older lady now, and she paints these portraits. And what I love about, not only the portraits are amazing, but she does it all herself. She sells all of her work on Facebook, and she's gotten a few key promotional things like interviews with CBC and that kind of stuff that has blown her up. So like you can't get one of these. You have to be always on Facebook waiting for her to post it, because people say sold like 2 seconds after she posts it, kind of thing. So she's doing really well. And she's taking a lot of that money and putting it aside because she wants to open like a retreat for artists, female artists on Vancouver Island here. So she wants to buy a place, and have female artists come and do residencies. But her one thing is that if you want to come, you have to have an idea that might change the world. So I just love that about her. She's so like still punk, you know, and her whole idea too is like her work, she will not, as much as they get popular, more and more popular, these pieces and her work, she won't raise the price. She's like, no, they're $100. That's it. Like it's accessible to everybody if you can actually be on there to buy it. But like price wise, she could raise the price quite a bit at this point, but she won't. Like really, really cool person. So that's Jean Smith. You should check her out.
Yeah, and this is who I chose. This is Swoon. She used to be a street artist, but then she got discovered, but it's wonderful that she did, because that money now has allowed her to do these amazing big installations where she's cutting into things, and it's very sculptural, and a lot of stuff. Her stuff is based on lino cut. And what I love about her is her name is Caledonia Curry. It says there in the corner. But there she's known as Swoon. And anyway, she does these like enormous, beautiful images of pregnant women and women breastfeeding, and women, like we don't see that as much as we should. We don't see these positive, beautiful pregnant bodies very much in art. So it's really nice to see that too. Just love her style too. And that's it pretty much.
Great. Well, this has been absolutely amazing, Christine and Sophia. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. I love that you tagged on to the end to introduce us to some other female artists. That's amazing. I have one question. What's next? What are you going to do next?
A great question. Christine, do you want to start or?
I have a solo show coming up in April at a place called Art at Bental, I believe it's Bental. And that's right downtown Vancouver. I'm pretty excited about it. Another thing that I just said, let's do it. I'm not exactly sure if this is going to work, but I have a body of work that I can show now. So I'm excited to see what happens there. And beyond that, we keep applying, we keep working towards, we have a couple of shows that we're both waiting to hear from to see if we get in or not. And we have some things planned for the summer, but we have to wait to see if we get into that show. We won't jinx it by saying it, but so we got that. And I'm applying actually for this really cool thing here. It's with the Community Arts Council of Vancouver. They have a new collective called the Neurodivergent Collective. So it's like I don't know the full details yet, but the details I know is that if you get in, you're part of a group of artists that are also neurodivergent, and you have, I believe, 4 or 5 meetings over the year, and then there's a show at the end. So I'm gonna apply for that. So what about you, Sophie?
Well, that sounds like a lot, Christine. I'll probably just do a lot of the things that you're doing, as I always do. But
no, don't say that.
Honestly, for me though, like just keeping it going, applying to shows, maybe getting gallery representation at some point. Like I've actually been realizing I need to put the effort into taking time to go see shows, because actually the pandemic was it was great because there was virtual stuff happening, which was great, and it opened our eyes to all these amazing things. But it's also nice to meet humans in person too, like, and go to openings and stuff, and I haven't done that in years, so I think that's on the list of goals for me. And maybe I just talked to my friend Dave Hine the other day, who is an artist who taught us at White Mountain Academy as well, and his work is amazing. And it's stuff like that where I'm just like, I have these people who I haven't really seen in years and reached out to. So I think that's on the list of, things to do, to just be open and maybe do some more collaborations with other artists who I already know. And yeah, like just nurture some of those connections that already exist, and keep on applying, and maybe I'll start a thing of apply to somewhere once a week or something. That would be a good goal.
One thing too, I'll point out is that like I have the luxury right now to be working on my art like pretty much full time, but Sophie has like a bazillion other things going on. So for her, it's harder to like carve out that studio time. And, so your progress is just, it's slightly just a little bit slower than mine because I'm like full train ahead, so
You're so right. And we all go in waves of these things in our lives. And so when we have the time, it's so important to just dedicate, your, really focus during that time that you have.
yeah.
And it feels good, even if it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that is wonderful. I'm excited to see what both of you do next. I think I feel like this show has been such a joy to have in the gallery, and I'm so proud to have it there. And I feel like you're both on sort of a precipice of doing something amazing, and that's really exciting to see what's going to happen next. But well, if you don't have anything else to share or anything else you want to say, we'll wrap up for today. All
Just
right.
thank
Well,
you.
thank you.
Yeah, just thank you so much, Katie. Again, I know we said it already, but you really are like doing some wonderful work with your gallery. And like I can't speak for the other artists, but for us, you really supported us into this show, and it made a huge difference. And for that, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your sweet words with that. That means a lot to me. This has been such an amazing experience being able to be a part of this gallery and to do these things. And it means the world to me that I get to do these sorts of things like this, like help you guys and make the show happen. So this has been really wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both again for sharing. This has been great. And thank you to everyone who's come to support these artists and who will be watching later on YouTube. Until next time, once again, I'm Katie Bradford Osborne for Roaring Artist Gallery, and we'll see you next time. All right. Bye.
Thank you.